We always love it where they say, oh, we just need to drink alcohol in moderation. And you think that it's going to be enough to protect the wine industry.
There's not really a one size fits all recommendation on that because we're so different.
But I'm curious about your perspective on preventative education in terms of giving people the tools that they can use ahead of time.
There is a huge need for community education. Now, who's going to do that? That's the question that I have.
We need to recognize, we need to adapt to that message.
Certainly, I do agree in the concept of moderation. The younger generations, many of them are not even interested in trying because honestly, they have learned from older people like me what not to do, so they fear. So that fear could be broken down with further education.
Another thing that you said, Rafael, that I really loved is this concept of peer education. And I think that's a critical step. There's a real opportunity for wineries to speak directly to the concerns that especially younger drinkers have.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for accepting this webinar session. I do have two special guests here. I have Rafael Ruiz. I also wanted to say your name in Portuguese, Rafael Ruiz, because that sounds like more normal and natural for me.
Sounds like they say it in my hometown. Ruiz.
So he's in Texas, but it's a very interesting blend in this conversation because he is actually a doctor, but also working as in the wine education. And then this actually, we're going to be very interested about talking about healthy message, moderation, and the wine. And we have Andrew as well, originally from US, but live in Europe. And I see all the reality that is happening there, and mainly in France. And he actually in France. And we're gonna be actually talking about different parts in the world, different message, and the different of the what we do different in this webinar is not protecting the past, but how we can adapt it, what challenges we have now to do better. So it's going to be a different approach of this conversation. We just don't want it to keep the same. We're not going to necessarily defend the same message has been telling us for the whole life, but also we just going to take it in a different perspective, a different approach. So that's what's happened. So what we can do from here, I guess this is more adaptable way to think, and this conversation is going to share today. And then I'm so glad you guys made it this time because it's quite late for you, Andrew, and it's the afternoon, almost dinner time for Rafa. So I really appreciate for you guys take your time to create value to the people who really struggle to which direction they're going to take. So thank you so much. So my first question is actually just giving a brief introduction for each other, what you do, and what you're going to bring it today to the table, just so people know about you guys, what you do, and in your own life is in Texas and France. So.
Awesome. Rafael, you want to go first?
Yes, absolutely. Well, my name is Rafael Ruiz. I'm from a small town in the coast of Puerto Rico called Jabucoa. It's a Taino native's name. And I work as a physician, so I pay the bills, and I happen to be specialized in psychiatry. So I have been exposed to and trained for and to help people with different type of needs. And certainly use disorder tend to fall in my lap. But I grew up in a bar. My dad used to have a bar when I was growing up. So I am familiar with that side of the business and the industry of selling. And in the process, I actually did a global wine executive MBA with Sonoma State University, where it was actually helped to look at the world of wine in different settings. So we went to Australia, to Adelaide, for a while during the training, and we went to France as well. So that helped us get a better idea about the business of life is a business. So and wine is part of that in many cultures. So that's where I'm coming from. And my main goal on the side is to help educate customers. They need to learn the same way you come to a physician for an informed consent to make an informed consent about a treatment, you need to know the data, what really is behind all this, because it's your life, it's your health, it's a community, it's your family.
Yeah, great. Andrew, do you want to just talk a little bit what you do and why you're here?
Yeah. I run Transom, which is a creative agency, a boutique creative agency. We work with a lot of wineries to do websites and branding and packaging, and we were founded in 2013 and in Seattle, Washington, where I'm originally from. But my wife and I moved to Europe, initially Spain. We lived in Barcelona for a while, and now we're living in the south of France. I've just had really great discussions with Priscilla about just the future of wine and like where wine is right now, and how we can help both Transom's clients and kind of the broader wine world just to continue to grow and to adapt to the current realities as those realities continue to change and adapt.
Yeah. And then, so thank you guys for making the time. But the first topic I really want to talk today is about the word moderation. This is the thing that actually started the conversation with Rafael, because one of his comments was such a clever comment in one of the posts I did on LinkedIn. And that's how I was like, oh my God, I need to talk with this guy. And I sent a private message to him. It's like, well, let's talk a little bit more about this topic. I'm very curious. Because he's talking the word moderation a different approach. So we always love to word it to say, oh, we just need to drink alcohol in moderation and in moderation. And you think that is going to be enough to protect the wine industry, to protect what we believe, to protect the business. But like Rafa taking this in another approach, what is actually it is moderation, and why moderations can be different interpreted for different people. I don't think we actually talking more than we say moderation and think we fix the problem, but we're never actually going deeper, like what it is moderation, what the moderation means for different people, and also how moderation can be different for different types of people as well. So I'd like you to get some insights for you, Rafa, and maybe some questions for you, Andrew, as well. What about messages and marketing and stuff? So they get this light conversation on this topic of moderation.
Excellent question. Moderation comes in different ways. The same way we have a diet goes to social media diet, or we have a diet for other things, is very individualized. There's not really a one-size-fits-all recommendation on that, because we're so different in many ways as humans. Our biology, our psychology, and the context of the history and culture that we are at. I can tell you what moderation could be in my hometown in Puerto Rico, but it will be very different to a town 15 minutes east where I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So there's a lot of factors there. Now, when we go down to the basic, most common denominator, which is the human being, then we have differences as well, because we have male bodies and female bodies, and we have different ways to in terms of genetics of the way we metabolize things. And alcohol is the perfect example for that. So at least in the United States of America, the recommendation of 1 drink for a female and 2 drinks for a male in a day seems to be the standard message. That will be changing in a way in the future. We're waiting for that. But the reality is humans do metabolize 14 grams of alcohol per hour. So once we know that limit, what is called a standard alcohol unit is actually measured against 14 grams of alcohol. And the reality is there's no coffee, there's no water, there's no magical solutions and unique teas from leaves on the Amazon or back down the road in my hometown coast that's going to accelerate that. Once you ingested that, it takes 1 hour for every 14 grams to be metabolized. The rest is going to be left somewhere in the body. The more fat you have, the more alcohol you're going to have in your bloodstream, because it's not going to be absorbed by the fat. The more water we have in our body, the more the more alcohol we're going to have in our bloodstream, affecting our organs to include our brain. So those are important um, control limits that we need to know. I was talking to a friend. He loves beers in this case, but he loves this high alcohol ones. A standard drink of a beer is about 12 ounces of 5% alcohol by volume. But he drinks 12% beers, 12 ounces of that. He already had two standard drinks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get, for example, depending on the recipe, an old fashioned whiskey drink, you can have even up to 28 grams in one drink. Oh, not
Wow.
one drink, is the one that you made. Look about the Long Island iced tea. I paid the price with a hurricane in New Orleans because that has a lot of alcohol on it. But I think people think, oh, just has one drink. Wine has very similar approach, because 5 ounces of wine that is supposed to be 12% of alcohol by volume, then it's 14 grams. So each type of alcohol is not created equal. They're not created equal the same way humans are not created equal. So we have to be mindful of that. You have to be mindful of who you are. I did a research on my own. I am lively, and actually being around people just sparked me up. I'm sparked up anyway to begin with. And but I need to be mindful. If I am around with people in a social setting where I know they're going to be bringing alcohol to consume, because it's part of, at least in my culture in Puerto Rico, it's common there, and the communal table. I need to be worried about who is going to be there. So I do a social strategy before I go. And the other thing is, if I'm tired, if I'm hungry, if I'm sleepy, I don't drink. If I can, because that impacts me. The alcohol is going to be absorbed faster. It doesn't matter if I'm tired or not, but the alcohol gets absorbed in the stomach. And that's what they say: eat well before you drink any or consume any alcohol product. Because yes, the food there is going to block the absorption of the alcohol in the stomach, and it's going to slow the passage of that alcohol fluid drink concoction into the small intestines. The small intestine inner mucosa layer, where it's actually absorbed, if you put it there, it's like a large tennis court area. It's huge.
Oh, wow.
It's huge. So once it crosses there, there's no food necessarily there to block that absorption. So men have more an enzyme that breaks down the alcohol into acetaldehyde, but men has more of that enzyme versus females. Females have less of that enzyme. And then on top of that, going back to the individualized setting, if you're from the Southeast Asian genetics, there are two genetics variants where you do not even have the enzyme. You're going to get drunk by even, I don't want to say this, people can say that I'm quoting things that are not true, but people can get really intoxicated. And I had seen that in action. I remember being in Europe in 2000, and there were two Chinese girls. They were hammered, and they only have one drink. So it is a very individualized. There's not really a one size fits all. Does it really? You have to understand who you are. What is your personality? The context, historical context where you're at, the law of the land, and the reality of where in your life you are at in the process.
I do have a question. And sorry, keep going.
Go ahead, Priscilla.
Okay.
The delay. I'll wait. You go.
Rafa, I really appreciate that, because I really pay attention to myself as well. When I am not sleeping well or don't eat something, I actually got drunk much quicker. And this is I actually feeling that message the same. It worked for me as well. But also I noticed in my own my mood is actually I get drunk if my mood is stressed or I have a night or kind of something in my body. I don't know what's going on because I'm not doctor, but I have to pay attention if like I get this angry with
Okay.
something or this kind of disappointed feeling or crying or the watch is gonna finish tomorrow, like
Yeah.
that's drama in my mind because sometimes like today I have control, this is on my mind to create these
Yeah.
realities. But if my mind is on that disappointed, stressed,
Yes.
or even depression, it seems like alcohol come to your body somehow. And the more you can eat and things like I don't know what's going on there. And that's my question.
Yes.
If you are on this moment of your life, you're disappointed with something or sad with something or angry with something, the alcohol taking your body in a different perspective and you make you you get drunk much quicker than if higher like very stressed and drink the alcohol
Yes.
sometimes it take you
Yes.
to this path. So why?
This is an excellent example. Also, one of the things I did not say, if I'm angry and stressed out, I know that I need to be careful because number one, the alcohol, that's is one of the reasons it's a pro-social item. People, drink and they become less anxious, and more talkative and more, you know, friendly. But the same way, if you are carrying a lot of emotions or negative sadness and things like that, we have something called the prefrontal lobe that is different in us humans compared to other primates, for example. Um, and this is frontal lobe is what we have based on what we know. They have separated us in a devolutional line, but the alcohol works first there, and that prefrontal lobe is what help us make some tone down and put things in a balance depending on what we are. But when we are under a lot of emotions, yes, you're gonna be because it disinhibits you. That's why people that are highly anxious become very friendly. That's why people that are afraid of talking to somebody, they go ahead and talk to them. That's why people that have all this emotion, they get disinhibited, especially the more you drink. And that's the problem is that because if you continue to do that, because this inhibition is going to give you a psychological blind spot that you're drinking too much already, you continue, then what you're going to know is what happened that at that moment, the next day, and it's very embarrassing. People fight. I have a good friend. He's the nicest guy in the world. But if he goes out with him, he wants to fight all the time. When he doesn't drink, he's even active at church and he's the nicest guy in the world. So that's what we have to know each other really, really in detail. Sadly, we turn to learn after the fact. And for some people, it could be too late due to accidents and fights, and they get arrested and lose their freedom, you name it. So that's a good point. If you're anxious, sad, angry, think like you need to be careful on how much you drink because those emotions are going to come out sometimes without you even liking it or wanting it.
Yeah. Rafael, you talked about you've talked a lot about the way that we like learn ourselves, and I think all of us probably have like a kind of a story that we have of like how we got to know, okay, I know that for me, I need to do this. And I know that like, I can like 2 drinks for me, 2 glasses of wine at dinner is like great. And there's no problem there. 3, 4, 5, I know, I can draw a little diagram of like, what is likely to happen at 5, like I'm going to be like turning the stereo up, and like at 7, I'm going to be out in the backyard, right. And so what I'm curious about is like, in your experience, I mean, a lot of the people who you've worked with are seeing you because they already have problems. But I'm curious about your perspective on, both either the efficacy and or tactics of doing like preventative education in terms of giving people the tools that they can use ahead of time so that they then can, you know, they don't have to learn. I know so many people, for example, who can't drink Goldschlager because they had at college, they were doing Goldschlager shots and it just completely ruined them, or some other alcohol, right? And they've all, like, we all have this like hard lesson that we've all learned.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if like you've seen anything that is effective, or what your perspective is on kind of preventative education,
Yes,
given that it's such that everybody is so different.
yes, sir. There is a huge need for community education. Period. Now, who's going to do that? That's the question that I have. Because if we rely on the government, just sit down and wait. Yeah. Do they provide some? Because I guess it's part of what they have to do, some guidelines and dietary guidelines. Yes, but we know that doesn't work. Now, is it going to be the producers or the distributors going to do that? Sometimes this is a business. It's like they're shooting themselves on the foot. But they got to be a topic of conversations on moderation there, and learning who you are. I'm gonna give you an example separate from alcohol. There was a problem with teenage pregnancies, and of course, people don't want somebody in schools and or university to talk to their children about sex, unprotected sex. But the reality is that they becoming pregnant.
Yeah.
You know, they're becoming pregnant. So there were some programs and some funds that were provided by the government, actually, that were helping young people in high schools and such to get exposed to that education, and they training them as peer support to go back to their school classrooms, communities, and they did that. I was part of that program. I was recruited, I remember. And one of the things that the funds were providing were condoms. So if you cannot go against human nature, because we have that drive for sex in order to perpetuate the species. But if you don't want that, and I remember when I was in first year of college, I had a box filled with condom, and I was always, people were knocking on my door. Hey, you have some condoms there? Said, yes, please take them. I don't want any pregnancy here, because it will ruin the life of the people, especially young people want to study. They were investing. They were maybe the first one in their families to go to college, for example. There was a study around that where they noticed that there was a drop in teenage pregnancy that was significant. And when they studied why, it was because that program was in that town.
Yeah. So the education
part.
Peer education, yeah.
Peer education was significant. Yeah. It's the same thing they do with suicide prevention. If alcohol in your culture is part of the communal table, and you have to look into how people consume it and how do they behave. I knew I did not want it to be in the drinking more than what I should, because I don't want to make mistakes or say things that, although they are true, people don't want to hear. And they are not in the best position to react and process that information. Education is key. I think what you do with your company, sir, with Transom, it's important to help the producers, but it's up to the producers and their value as a company, or the distributors and the values of the company. Of course, they make more money if they sell more alcohol.
Great.
They make more money if they sell more alcohol. And I'm not saying that they should not say don't drink. It's about the message of how to use it. Because you can use that, you can coin that with wellness, you can coin that with, responsibility, and they can be the transparent company that especially the younger generations are looking for.
Yeah. There's the famous Black Friday advertisement that Patagonia did, where they were like, "Don't buy our stuff," and of course, it was incredibly successful. I think Patagonia is a very interesting, very interesting company because they, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, but their messaging is kind of, top to bottom is about like, hey, how can we reduce our impact on this world that we love so much? They recognize that, like, in order for people to enjoy the outdoors, there has to be outdoors for them to enjoy.
Sure.
And yeah, I think there's a real opportunity for wineries to speak directly to the concerns that especially younger drinkers have, and mass, right? Like, there was a TikToker, what was her name? I've got it. Warner Boyne, or Juan, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. She's at Confidence Uncorked on TikTok. She like asked a bunch of millennials. She was like, "Hey, millennials drinking is way down. Like, most of my followers are millennials. Like, talk to me. Why is it?" And like, there was like, I don't know how many thousands of comments, but so many of them were talking about like, "Oh, I get headaches. It makes me anxious. I do THC. It hurts my tummy. All these kinds of things." And a lot of people mentioned, Rafael, to your point, like the trauma from seeing other people, overindulge.
Yes.
There's a lot of that danger there, and I think the wine industry, because it's kind of abdicated any meaningful presence on TikTok and to a degree on Instagram, at least not in a way that's like getting up into the cultural zeitgeist. One of the comments that I thought was the most interesting is somebody says, "I've lost interest in alcohol in general over the last couple of years." Like, I think a big part of that is that wine especially it really has a relevancy problem. And so they don't have that voice to be able to make meaningful statements within our overall culture. So yeah, I think there's such concern among younger people about the health effects, not just of alcohol, but kind of in general, and such a real opportunity for alcohol companies, but especially independent wineries, to speak directly to that in a way that acknowledges, like, hey, this is going to affect everybody differently. Here's what I do, and this is the right amount of alcohol for me. It might be different, but I drink spritzes I literally do, actually, this summer in the south of France. Spritzes are amazing. You have sparkling water and water,
especially in the the drink. If I'm consuming alcohol, I do agree with you, sir. I think I will not wait until the wine industry do that unless they're going to be forced by the government. And that's the reality.
The wine industry. Yeah, I don't see it as a broad scale.
You both are very good on the topic you guys said, because I think I really actually yesterday something I wanted to bring for keep this discussion alive. Yesterday, actually, I read someone from the wine industry put it, say like, the best things I did in my life, I was drunk. The best friends, the best story, drinking more alcohol, and then that message having thousands of likes from the people in the wine industry, thousands of shares for the people in the wine industry. And it was
that Scott Galloway?
It's just like a message to try to protect the past, and I try to keep people drinking more. But what I see by reading and by being around the futurist people or innovation people is that more is dropping down, because the consumer mindset more is becoming overwhelming to our generation now, because we wanted something more why and why I'm drinking this, and we want a less, we don't want a more. So I think we feel like we overspending, overwhelming, it's everyone trying to sell us something, and we just feel like, oh my God, and we're going to these bottle shops and have thousands and thousands of people, but like thousands of wines in wineries. It's about 100,000 wines around the world. It's a lot of wineries. And then like in some wines in Australia, we have each one have 60, 80 like SKU, like labels, SKUs. So how we can actually bring some irrelevancy, and then we just try to that more, because that's what capitalism it is. Like, let's get people eating more, let's people to drinking more, let's people buy more clothes, let's people doing like consuming more and more, because that's how the society is getting more money. Like, that's how they make us spending more. But I think we have this brain conscience now. People just like, well, wait a minute, why do I need this? And making questions themselves, and then that's automatically change the behavior. And that's what the wine industry is struggling, and then they don't even realize it's because people don't want more alcohol. And then that's just the message, say like, drinking more, be drunk, that's the best stories. That's is not really talking what we want now. So we need to recognize, we need to adapt to that message for what people crave. So people don't crave more alcohol, be more drunk, and be more doing the things in the past where we've been sold that's been nice. We wanted to actually feel good about ourselves. How we can be good about ourselves? Just change the message so they're whining, make me feel good about myself. But they're not going to feel good about myself. Don't tell me the truth. Going out, drinking more, doing more silly stuff, and because if people's going to take me a picture and going to put in the social media, I'm going to feel terrible about myself, and I'm going to want to drink it for the rest of my life. The consequences now is very different. So we can't not live it as in the past. We need to adapt it. What we're living now. If someone take me a picture and put it in Instagram, I'm going to be terrible. And then more. That's when the pictures go on the internet. It's very hard to take it off.
Yes.
How can you take this off? Like, you can defend it for the rest of your life.
Yes. It becomes harder. It's like when we open our mouth and say things, we want to be in control of what we say, because we're masters of what we do not say. And we can really be ashamed and change the path of our history depending on what we do, especially when we are under the influence of something, because we're not ourselves when we're intoxicated. The reality is, this is important, that wine industry, they know this. They know this. They know that if you look into the porters forces of the market, when it comes to business, there's a huge power of the buyers moving forward, and they need to change their philosophical approach and message. Drinking more is telling people to binge and to do things illegally and where they sell their product. The definition of alcohol binge is 4 or more drinks in a day. And that's, 56 grams of alcohol. So that's what I was saying about the standard unit. We need to measure that. And the thing is, when we get to the point when we open that door, we, like you said, increase the volume of the music, or people start drinking more, that's a problem, because our brains start getting disconnected with the reality, and our areas of balance in our brain, in our ear, start getting impacted. That's when we start stumbling with our own shadow, and we can have car accidents and become violent. I think that's important. The other thing that the wine industry or alcohol industry in general is to understand, the younger generations are looking for options. They are looking for substitutes. They are consuming substitutes. Water is a substitute. Southern iced tea is a substitute in the U.S. Besides beer or other drinks. Tea, green tea is a substitute. You can still have a good, quiet, happy, fun moment drinking those non-alcoholic drinks. And that's a reality that business-wise they're facing. And it's important to say, we don't want you to binge. You can sell more by being honest and transparent and trying to promote wellness.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The companies.
I love that.
I remember in the 80s, there was the Budweiser ad campaigns with Spuds MacKenzie. Do you remember the? It was like a dog, and like a bunch of like girls in bikinis and stuff like that, and other advertising about like tastes great, less filling. And as a kid, I never understood what that meant. I was just kind of like, why would it matter? But it's like, oh no, the idea is like it's less filling, so you can drink more and you can get more drunk. And I feel like I think the wine industry in general, the wine industry in general, I think is like doesn't do a whole lot of like binge type of language. I can't think of any like wine. Well, actually, I guess I can. I think that there's, especially in like broader culture of this kind of like mommy needs a drink. Like it's, there's a lot of like kind of wine culture about like moms like drinking a bottle of wine at after the kids go to bed or something like that. But I guess I don't see that as like I don't see like the industry itself in the way that maybe, Fireball whiskey or something like that, like some of these other like liquor companies where it's like it really is about like how many shots can you do in a minute type of thing.
Excellent.
But I think that there's other ways that the wine industry doesn't, that it could encourage, I think, more moderate use. And for my money, I think one of the biggest is alternative packaging. You've got like a 750 milliliter bottle, and that's exactly, yeah, you could make smaller or even like bag and box models, or just like boxes that allow you to have like, I have 2 glasses with dinner, or however much like works for you, 1 glass, and you don't have to worry about the bottle itself like spoiling or feel like, well, we better finish this bottle. I don't know how many times my wife and I have said to each other like, well, we better finish this bottle, and then suddenly we drank more than we intended to.
Yes, sir. I remember I used to work in a residential treatment facility for addiction. Could be substance related or non-substance related, like gambling and porn. And there was a guy there, really, really successful C-suite executive, and he started, cooking with his wife at night. And that's exactly what they did. They opened a bottle, but then psychologically, they knew they did want to enjoy the bottle, and they didn't want it to go bad. So they drank it all. But that first bottle became 2, and then later on became 3 per night. And that's where the problem came in. So sometimes less is more, because you can drink more, you can keep your health intact, and you can keep your freedom.
Yes, freedom.
You can keep your freedom. To be happy, we need 3 things. Number 1, to be alive. Number 2, to have a balanced health. And number 3, we need freedom to make the right choices, to do all of the above. And believe me, they take your freedom in county jail or prison, or even just take yourself out of the island. That's not the case, and that's not the example you want to give to your offsprings. I had a conversation. I sat down with my son and my daughter. They're teenagers going into college. College is sometimes the first place for many people, young people, that they encounter alcohol. In some cultures, even though it is illegal under 21 years old, at least in the United States of America, they bench like crazy. And you see all these movies. I remember growing up watching 1980s movies, and all this is all in excess. And the other thing is cultural social pressures, like the more you drink, the better macho you are. That is not true. That is not true. Actually, I told my daughter, if you better make sure you let me know if you start dating a Mexican guy, because I'm allergic to jalapenos. I'm not going to be a macho in Mexico. So it's all about the cultural pressures. What really, and people, the other thing that is true, we tend to learn, even though people celebrate our stupidity when we're intoxicated, we're embarrassed. That's not what we want. And it doesn't look good. So I tried to do that, and it's very individual. And I want to go back, sir, to your example of Patagonia. Patagonia did that because they lived their own values. for doing that. So each company have their own values, and that's, I guess, for the up and coming generations. In the current ones that are consuming alcohol, they want to see transparency over profits.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree 100%. You said it's such a great message there, Rafa. It's honesty, transparency, and actually live your values, because we love it to say the word moderation, but moderation is empty because there is not really like what Patagonia did. It was an example to be followed. Like, look, I really cares about sustainability. So that's why I'm telling you, don't buy our clothes, And then they completely, they actually feel like, okay, they're really making clothes to take more time. So that's how they don't. And then they're doing less, but and a better message, and leaving the value, be honest and transparent. And I think that's what I'm missing there, because just these messages are like drinking more, drinking this, drinking that, blah blah blah, or finding wine for occasions. It's just not going to be enough to adapt it to these new generations of the brain, because now with cautiousness, more is not the best for us. Like, people now have a different diet as well. It's not just the alcohol has been suffering. A lot of the other business has been suffering as well, and don't recognize that, because food as well. Like, we don't want to eat as much. At least me, I cut more than 0.5% of actually eating, because I was like, I don't need that much food. I don't need it that much food. That's people like, we're going to restaurant. They have and in US it's insane. Like, it's the most pubs and restaurants in US is just give like such a huge meal. It's so hard to even start it. Imagine finish. So we actually, if you stop it to think, the culture of more has been not just in the alcohol industry, but in the food industry as well. And buying clothes, like we all this fashion things is like we need your clothes every time you're going out, and and I'm thinking we've been more cautious now. There is a part of your brain is like, wait a minute, I think I've been overconsumption, overwhelming with this word, and that's pretty much what Gen Z coming with a different mindset. But I feel like the wine industry started to adapt the message to attract this new brain model that is coming along. We just try to protect the past because the word tradition, and the tradition stop us to grow or to see the other perspective of the table. And that's why I wanted to get this message here, to get different perspective, because just to keep telling, drinking more alcohol is good, it's silly things, make friends, it's take you out of isolation. It's not necessary that, because people still can drink alcohol in a very depression way, on the isolation way, and then can actually take bad effects for the alcohol, and you're not leaving the value of the wine you want to be. Because for me, wine is more than just the alcohol. But how we can actually set that message if you keep trying to protecting the old message, is not adapting to the world we're living now. I think that's the thing that I can't really get it. Like, how our industry is gonna adapt it to a message to actually leave the value like Patagonia did.
Yes, I think I do agree with your point. And actually, in the MBA that I did in global wine industry, my thesis was on how to market to the Hispanic population in the United States of America, for example. Huge market there, mostly ignored. And they do drink wine. But then you have to understand the culture inside of that. And one of the things is you have to understand who is the leader in that culture. It usually is the elderly woman. If you keep that woman happy with that person doing, getting intoxicated, that will be an accepted pro-social activity and part of a healthy lifestyle. That's how they will then, the younger generations look up to them. Not getting drunk and doing crazy stupid things and beating up your partner every time your sport team loses that night. It's about enjoying life, because it is very sad to sit down in the morning and trying to remember what happened, and you don't remember what happened. even though it was probably the most beautiful night you ever had, but you never had that in your memory bank for the future. So it's healthy, balanced, pro-social, accepted things that do strive for health. It should be the message, and we need to find the key thought thinkers of our groups and society to take that out there, um, because if that's what they want, family wants that balance and help in happy times in the community.
Rafael, to your earlier point about peer education, I think there's a, and Priscilla, to your question about like, yeah, how do we actually get this message out there? And I think that you know, what one thing that Transom is doing right now is we're studying all of the different winery websites from different regions, mm-hmm. and part of that we're also like looking at their social media, and what we're seeing is like a lot of winery websites are very out of date, and a lot of the tactics and things that they're doing is very out of date. But with social media, we're also seeing very much this kind of like thinking of it as like a billboard, and not as like a mm-hmm. genuine like place to engage and build community and stuff like that. So and so like we're not seeing a lot of, basically in terms of the world of social media, in terms of like which is where people are at, right? Like it used mm-hmm. to be that, you know, cable news or like network TV were like where, yeah, exactly, right?
We
have
a computer that is an extension of our body.
Yeah, the Daily Show is like what, 5 million people, and like Theo Vaughn and like all of these other podcasts are 20 million or something like that. So the wine, I think in general, is not in a position right now to be that kind of peer educator. It's mm-hmm. just not, it's kind of abdicated a position as a voice, as a relevant voice in our culture. And so because of that, like this whole conversation about health, I think especially recent studies that were released, showing that like even moderate drinking can have like a negative impact, like up to a 20% increase in overall mortality risk, which sounds huge. Like that kind of stuff is very much, we're just not part of where that conversation is happening. And so when I talk to people who are, either my age or younger, what they're seeing is like TikTok influencers or wellness people on mm-hmm. Instagram who are all saying like, oh, alcohol is totally bad for you, and all of these messages that have an amount of truth to them. Like obviously, like we've just been talking about, like if not enjoyed moderately, like alcohol can be very bad. But they're also not. But I think that they leave out the genuine benefits of alcohol in yes. terms of, making, like, genuinely unwinding. After I've had a day running around chasing after my daughter, like what is really great is to mm-hmm. pour a glass of wine after she's gone to bed and enjoy a nice conversation with my wife. So I really think that it is very important for wineries on an individual level to figure out, okay, what are our values? How do we live our values? Like you were saying, Rafael, I think that's a fantastic point about how Patagonia is just, how do we live our values? But very importantly, how do we elevate what we are saying to a place that is going to reach the people who need to hear it?
Correct.
We've seen this huge growth with Olipop and a lot of these other like functional soda brands, these non-alcoholic Gia, Desoy, that have just exploded in revenue. I think like in Europe alone, no alcohol and low alcohol was something like 12 billion in revenue, and growing year over year, very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And like Olipop had a $100 million investment to start out with. And they spent 30 million of that perfecting the formula and 70 million on branding and marketing, because they understood that, like, right. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It is fantastically successful.
It is.
So yeah, like the question to me is like, it's like, who is shaping the narrative with what budget and in what channels? And without, like, understanding what we have to say is really important, but until we understand, like, how do we access that conversation and what kind of budget does it cost for us to access that conversation, or what kind of work does it cost? Because it doesn't necessarily have to be crazy expensive for an individual winery. And then at what channels is that conversation happening? Those are I think, equally important parts of the question.
Yeah, I agree. I brought in my concept on updating marketing message through even the development of the product for the Hispanic market in the U.S. I started with Texas because it's big enough, and what I presented that in the annual meeting for the wine industry, the main complaint was budget. That was the main complaint, because they're not selling. The growers are not selling grapes like they were, and the producers are not selling necessarily like they were. So they have a lot of product there they need to move, which for me is an opportunity to be creative.
Yeah, that was my words.
Mandate to be creative.
Yeah, I was talking to one. I said, "Why don't you do a Bellini with that sweet wine that you have there?" And it will bring more people that drink something different. They don't want the sweet white wine. They will enjoy a Bellini. And so the key here for them with that message is, many of them, going back to your study on the website, the owners, many of them they don't know technology. They don't know digital. And you talk about then, it's like it goes this way, and the younger generations are not interested. So there's a huge dynamic shift in ownership and what they think and they believe. I was talking to one of the local wineries, and I said, listen, if you don't have the money, or you're not willing to pay for things beyond what you want to do, why don't you just be a local hero?
Yeah.
If the community is expanding, they're building more houses, things like, they need a place to go that is at 5 minutes away from home, and then come back in a safe way, and safely. So we have to change the business strategy, period, because the forces of the market are telling you in your pockets every year with your investors or whoever that you're not selling that you were. So shift. If you can use your own product. If you're not selling, you can be creative. You can add more things. You can change the level and educate them further. You can reduce the amount to 375 milliliters to 187.5 milliliters. Like you said, buying something, selling something that is your product. You just put in it a different package. It's the same product that you loved last year, but you have more now. You can repackage it if you can afford that. And now you can have that for the whole week. You don't have to worry about drinking the whole bottle in one night. Right. So that is important, because the threat is there and it's not going to change. The main constant in the world is change. Mm-hmm. Once you understand that, you need to have a business that is agile because the wine industry is at an inflection point.
Absolutely.
These three brains together just make my mind feel like I want to write a post. Like this conversation has been such an inspired conversation. But I agree completely with you, Rafa, about if you don't have money, be creative. Because the only way because the people can, only your mind make actually things happen. Because you can see, like, I don't have money, I don't need to do nothing because I don't have money, and it just see the competitions like, oh, they do that because they have money, I don't have money. So you literally gonna bring you diminish yourself, and they're not gonna change your life at all. By say, okay, they have the money, but they can't do what I can do, And then that's how you find different opportunities. And that's why I don't like a playbook or like a script or that's like everyone needs to do the same, because everyone have a different situation. Everyone needs to see what their opportunities and their talents and the something they only then can bring to the table. I think if we started to think ourselves as a different people, not just copying whatever that person have that more money to do it, that's fine. They have the resources to do that. But if you don't, what else you can do it? Think outside of the box. Like just to go into the playbooks, try to create your own playbook, create your own opportunity. And then I think there's two things we need to think when you have a problem. And that's, for me, it's the main things happening in the wine industry. We have a problem, we react it, respond. If you will react it, you always deem to yourself, you're going to take your mind to the wrong path. If you respond, you will find opportunities. So, okay, I don't have the money, but I have this. I have a great network. I have a great way to connect the communities. I have this or that. And that is how we should try to be differentiation ourselves as well from each other. Because in the end of the day, how many Chardonnays we have on the world? How many Cabernet Sauvignons we have in the world? How many, like, we have, like, people say, like, but my Chardonnay have 12 months in the oak and it might have 11 months in the oak. But I wanted to know, like, consumers, the average consumer, like, I'm talking about 9% of the people, 95%, maybe even more, they can't really recognize if your wine was 10 months, 11 or 12. And I would say, like, even wine professionals, you need to be really tasted lots of wines and really try to find out those kind of information. So this product differentiation is not much for the eyes of consumers. And that is why it's pretty easy for them to change one label to another label if they are cheaper. Because they don't feel. I was talking with talking like last week. I was in an event and I have this guy of 30 years old, and he told me like, I never buy wines more than $50 because I don't see the value. Like in Tasties, you just get this little bit better. So why are you going to spend more than $50 in a wine? So we put so much value on the wrong place.
Yes.
So much value on the wrong message.
It's the wrong message is there. One of the things I realized while I was doing the MBA, at the heart of, or at least in the US and in California, the push of premium products that came with purchasing those products because they were after land and production facility as well. So there was more than just the premium product. But the younger generations, they care less about that. The message that you send in those websites and videos and things like that, it is like they do not belong there. It's right. And they do not belong there. They want to explore. They're willing to try, but you need to open access money-wise to them. Yeah. You cannot. Your margins are going to be higher for a more pricey, good quality bottle of wine, but you have good quality bottles of wines that are less than $10. Yeah. So, but where that $10 thing? How do they know? How do they find? How do they get educated? Digital marketing campaigns are key, and I might be an ignorant when it comes to the cost, but it is a good way to reach to everybody. You can target things. You can do so many things. So that's where the tools are out there. Yeah. And if your message is health is wealth, they will listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I will listen. I'm all about health in this moment. So
yeah,
I'm really
you have to match that. Your behavior has to be congruent with that.
Right. Yeah, it's such a resonant theme. We talk with our clients a lot about, there's a translation that needs to happen over every generation and every audience, right? Is that you have your core beliefs and values your core beliefs that shape the decisions that you make and like have shaped the company and into what it is. And those core beliefs are presumably not often changing, right? They might change over decades or something like that, but in general, those are things that we believe in, and we hold them pretty tightly. But those beliefs then need to be translated into messaging and into design and all the other touch points that people have in a way that's going to resonate with the values of your audience. And as those values of the audience changes, sometimes that translation needs to change as well.
I think that's pretty much the example we gave about Patagonia brand. And that's the wine industry done, and that education kind of about you yourself and what you present to the world, but because you just try polish to sell more, because I think people can feel that, and polish to sell more is not going to work, and just protecting the past message is not working either. So if it's not working, so let's try to do something different. Let's try to bring people like the way they adapt and the way they live, and this conversation was very, very brain open conversation. I really love to put these three brains together, so I'm really happy to have you both here today with me. Just make me realize a lot of things and a lot of it was putting together. But yeah, I'm so grateful for the time and for the conversation. And please, I would like to finalize this conversation with like what you get from this conversation, what the phrase you want to finish in this, so people actually be on the mind when they finalize this, watching this. And yeah, so please, Rafa, you can start with you.
Well, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity and the honor to be sharing some of this idea and data with you all. Certainly, I do agree in the concept of, moderation. The younger generations, many of them are not even interested in trying because, honestly, they have learned from older people like me, and then what not to do. So they fear. So that fear could be broken down with further education. If they choose based on their values, not to drink, that's fine. That is fine. There's different ways for them to be approached and get access to certain things. I know in the future my children might not drink alcohol at all, but I do at least let them smell the wines. It's 80% of the good stuff is in the aromas. But I don't invite them to start drinking because it's their decision. Plus, they're also minors in jurisdiction that we're at in Texas. But there is a need for transparency, quality, consistency, and good access to the products that you make. This is a business. Run the numbers. There's a margin there. You can sell more by sometimes having a product that people is an entry level product. There are other analog industries, like the car industry had learned to do that when they were losing business to other companies based on what the market wants and the people around you. I always invite people to be a local hero. That is there, and you can donate and things like that. Some people might not like your brand around because it has something related to alcohol in it, and that's fine. But the reality is, if you support the community, they at least are gonna know that you are a brand, a company to trust that wants the best for the whole community in general. And take it from here.
Yeah, I think that local hero is such a really powerful concept, and especially for wineries that are small or independent and don't have a ton of money to invest in branding or in marketing. I think being truly authentic and being and using your creativity, I think is really, really important. There's a I think it's incredibly important that another thing that you said, Rafael, that I really loved is this concept of peer education, and I think that's a critical step that a lot of wineries I see are not doing, in that the voice of the winery is still one that is really focused on over the past 30 years or something like that, right? So it's still very it hasn't been translated. And so I think if there's any for the wineries that are watching, I think you don't have to spend a huge amount of money, but you do have to speak as a peer to the people that you're trying to reach. And so if you're still thinking about premiumization and you're thinking, well, I just want people over 50 or over 60 who have the cash to spend on a really expensive bottle, then that's certainly one strategy, but that's a whole bunch of walruses that are sitting on a shrinking iceberg, and land is getting farther and farther away. So I think as we're figuring out where do we go from here, understanding that how important it is to translate your values, what is really true about what you believe it to be really true and what you really hold dear, and translating those values into a voice and into a channel that's where people are at. That I think is going to be the most important thing. And once you have that voice, once you have that conversation, you're having that with your audience, then you can include the way that you then the inclusion of messaging that addresses, the dangers of over consumption, the realities of what it means to choose to include alcohol as a part of your life in a healthy way, and all of the other methods in between of sponsoring sporting events or doing yoga at the winery, or other ways that you can show that alcohol can be a healthy part of people's lifestyles. All of that conversation becomes that much more believable, and people trust you that much more because you have shown that you're willing to show up where they are, you're willing to talk to the concerns that they have, and at the end of the day, loyalty comes to those people that we trust, and if you can be transparent and honest, and you use that creativity to deliver not just alcohol, but good feelings and good vibes and all, then you're going to be way ahead of everybody else on your block. And even if you're not spending an insane amount of money, we love to do that kind of stuff with our clients. If anybody's curious, if anybody wants to talk about what that might mean, feel free to send me an email. I'm andrew@transom.design. Usually I don't lose internet quite this badly, but we've got a big storm outside right now. So, but yeah, we love having those kinds of conversations with people. And thank you again, Priscilla, for just having us here. It's been a real blast. And Rafael, really enjoyed speaking with you as well.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Rafael, you both are just a great brain. Thank you, guys. Sorry, Rafael. Sorry.
No, thank you both. Keep pushing the rethinking movement. It's needed.
It's needed. I agree. So thank you both. I'm just going to give you 2 cents of what you said, Andrew. Education is about to have a conversation. It's 2 ways talking. So I listen and I talk. I think the wine industry needed to understand that type of education, because when we talk about education, everyone is saying, yes, educated. But the education we have in the wine industry, I talk and you listen. And I have the authority and the hierarchy, and you just need to follow. And see that the kind of conversation with the society where it's going now is not adaptable. That is not where the people want to learn. People want to learn by, okay, I listen your perspective, but can you listen my perspective? Can we just see learning from each other and grow with each other? That's the type of education we need to move it from the past to the present and the future. So, because what we do now is going to decide your future. If you don't understand education is a 2-way conversation, you're probably going to be, your future is going to be very different for those people who understand education is 2-way conversations. So I think that's the only point I want to talk about education, because I think educated, know what you don't know, is the power. It's the power of your success. It's when you discover something you didn't know yesterday. But at the same time, you need to be open for that. So that's what the education is missing in the wine industry. We're not listening what people are interested in. We just wanted to let them keep the same message, because that's we wanted the authority. We wanted to make sure everyone following the same we reproduce the same humans we have reproduced in the past, and then definitely it's not happening. It's not going to happen. It's not going to change, because these little humans, we have babies now. It's going to be very different of us we're talking today, and then that's going to be the evolution of society and humanity, and the brain is going to be different. So that's why they worry me so much, and that's what we think it is. It's just we can't just keep in the past alive just because benefit us, because it's not going to make us ahead. It's not gonna change our future as a wine industry as a whole. So, and then that is why I really like it to put in some brains who can see things beyond of the obvious, because the obvious is always to keeping hold of whatever the past and whatever the noise it is. And that's why this conversation is very helpful for the people who is looking for more, and they're looking for this kind of education, is two-way conversations, and then that's what is beyond of just what everybody say. And then that's why I'm so proud of the rethinking, because actually attracted somehow great brains. So you, Rafael, has been amazing, the whole value you bring it over, and all your knowledge about beyond of the wine industry and beyond of the alcohol industry of the doctors. So I'm very grateful to have you here. And Andrew, you are such a creative man and such a switch on. You already know, we already see the values beyond just of the old script. So I'm very grateful to have you both here, and I just want to say thank you so much for this collaboration. And hopefully that the words benefit you back with much more reward by just having this conversation and give the experience of people to see the problem in a different perspective, and then try to adapt it instead of just to hold the past. So I just want to say thank you so much, and I hopefully that communities get a lot of value and get in touch with you guys. And thank you for so much.
Thank you.
For you both.
Thank you, Priscilla.